Not quite sure what's going to pop out. Goodness. Okay. Anybody need to leave before midnight? Venerable, you mentioned that mixing Amitabha practice with others could have negative effects on our Lotus, thank you. See, that's a trick. Now I know. Okay. I fed. Lotus I fed, committed to my other practices, but still have an intent in Pure Land Buddhism. What about me? Our lotus will grow bigger and stronger and every way we want it to grow. Better if we focus on chanting Amitabha. But I once heard somebody ask my teacher, what about those who have chanted the name of Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara? And teacher asked, how long had they been chanting? And apparently the person had been chanting over 10 years. So he told that person it was okay, since they had chanted that name for so long and were so used to it, that they could continue chanting, but to dedicate the merits to being born in the Pure Land, and to keep vowing to be reborn in the Pure Land. Now that was because Avalokiteshvara is right next to Amitabha. So they are together, so they're very closely related. In fact, Avalokiteshvara will be the next Buddha in the Western Pure Land after Amitabha. But that was like one particular set of circumstances. It's better if we can to focus on just chanting the Buddha name, to have our lotus grow as strong and as large and as bright as it can. So it's ideal if we can do that. If we are not yet at the point where we're comfortable or choose to just chant the name, then keep dedicating the merits to being born in the Pure Land. Keep making the vow to be born in the Pure Land. But understand it will maybe slow things down a little bit. Okay. Venerable, I am wondering about how someone can go from coarse suffering at death to a Pure Land with no suffering overnight. Also, how sensory desire is suffering. Yet in Pure Land, these desires do come up, even though they're satisfied immediately. Also, how can someone make progress without suffering? Okay, first question. I'm wondering about how someone can go from coarse suffering at death to a Pure Land with no suffering overnight. I'm not sure what coarse suffering is. Can somebody help me on that?
I wrote that question as
well. You use different writing implements.
What I meant by coarse suffering is just like someone could be dying of cancer and have terrible pain and just horrific suffering, and then very quickly they can go to the Pure Land and they don't experience that anymore. So, I mean, besides what you were saying about living a life of ethical conduct and virtue and reciting the name of the Buddha, how is that possible to just go from, I guess it's hard for me to imagine going from that.
Again, a case that a person I know of from Washington, D.C., a gentleman who, this is probably about 25 years ago, I think, Gentleman had cancer, was dying, was a Chinese, good person, just never heard of Pure Land. And some people called up one of the centers, I guess in Washington, and asked how to help him. And my teacher was there at the time, so he said, go to the hospital and talk to him about Pure Land. And the gentleman was in final stages of cancer. And the friend went and spoke to him about the Pure Land. And very quickly, the ill person said, I don't feel pain anymore. And he started to chant. And he did not have pain anymore. And he believed he was born in the Pure Land just a few days later. This is an extraordinarily rare situation for this to happen. For us to hear at the very end of our life, that to hear about the Pure Land and then to chant and to believe so deeply, to be able to chant and to accomplish rebirth. It's very rare. It can happen if the person had what I call very good roots. Good roots are referred to in the Amitabha Sutra. It means the person has practiced in many, many lifetimes. But in this particular lifetime, he did not have the opportunity to encounter Pure Land Buddhism. But when he did, he believed completely. And because of that, he was able to focus his mind in his chanting so well that this is one of those cases where, as Amitabha said in one of his vows, if you say my name sincerely 10 times, I will come to escort you to the Pure Land. Mm-hmm. So because this person had such incredible good roots, he believed. And in that belief and in his vow and practice, his pain stopped. Mm-hmm. Because he told his family, don't worry, my pain has stopped. I have met his wife. Mm-hmm. So it is possible. It depends on how deeply we practice, how sincere we are, how focused we are in our chanting. If we are focused, the pain can stop. But it depends on how sincere we are, how intent we are in our chanting. How sensory desire is suffering. In the Pure Land, these desires do come up. See, we've had these habits for a long time. Of wanting things, sensory desires. When we go to the Pure Land, we haven't managed to eradicate them before we go. Mm-hmm. We go with our residual karmas and our residual habits, so they can still arise. But as soon as when we're newly there, after we're there, then gradually those desires fade, because we realize they're futile. We no longer feel the need for these things. But initially when we go there, we have those habits. Habits are buried deep in our laya consciousness. And that's what goes from lifetime to lifetime, which is why it's so tricky, because it keeps picking up new bad habits all along the way. So these habits are there. And it's very easy for them to just kind of bubble up like a wandering thought. But we very quickly realize we don't need whatever it is. So because we realize we don't need it, gradually those desires just fade. Because we're thinking of other things, we're thinking of the practice, we're learning. And we're chanting the name still. So it's like putting that stone on those weeds. If every day we go out and pick up the stone and say, how are you doing? The weeds are going to continue to grow. If we put that stone on and leave it on top of them, first the leaves will die off, then the stem, eventually the roots will die as well. So we use the name of Amitabha like a stone on those weeds to suppress them. Gradually, they will die out. Here, to break a habit, we need to work really, really hard. Constantly catch ourselves and work at it very, very hard. In the Pure Land, it's simply habits just gradually fade without our even focusing on their fading or working on their fading. It's just that our mind becomes so concentrated on other things, on the teachings, on our chanting in the Pure Land. How can someone make progress without suffering? We're just suffering all the time. To some degree, we're in some form of distress. Even if we're happy at this moment, we know there's suffering in the fact that we know it's going to end. There is, the way to eradicate suffering on the path is to have the firm goal that in the Pure Land, there is no suffering. So we can look at, right now we attach to suffering. We worry about it. When we're not worrying, we're worrying that we're going to have suffering. When we have suffering, we focus on it because we take the body as I. So we get all engrossed in I am suffering. When really, the body is not I. Feelings are not I. This is all impermanent. It is not the permanent being who is suffering. It is this concept of I, this mistaken idea that this body is who I am. The point we try to get to is we look at this body like a piece of clothing. If I had a tear in my shirt, and I thought the shirt was who I am, I would get very upset. I'm torn. But the shirt is just something temporary. It is just something I have put on in this lifetime. The shirt is not who I am. If I understand the shirt is not who I am, I can look at it and say, the shirt has a tear in it. That's the nature of shirts and samsara. By not getting attached to it, I do not get caught up in feelings of suffering. I recognize it for what it is. Are both of you still subject to emotional memories of the past? Half-remembered, sweet, bitter songs, unfulfilled desires and wants. How do you both dispel these? Both of you.
Maybe.
Both of us? Okay, I can't answer for God. Are both of you still subject to emotional memories of the past? Yeah. A memory will come up. Something triggers it. A food, a place, somebody says something, so the emotional memory comes up. I try not to attach to it. it's in the past. If it's a nice memory, I smile and then just try to brush it aside. If it's painful, I try not to relive the pain or relive the guilt, because that does not accomplish anything. I need to be focused on what is happening now. So when that memory comes up, I recognize it for a memory and then try to brush it aside gently as soon as I can. Okay.
What she said.
Well, that's no fair. Next time you go first.
Okay.
I dispel them with Amitabha.
Okay, I do something different.
Okay.
Otherwise, my answer is basically the same as yours.
Okay. How is the Pure Land? Let's see. Does it differ from our belief in heaven or afterlife? Heaven is still within samsara. Lifetimes in heaven can be extraordinarily long, but they are still finite. So anything in samsara is still impermanent. In samsara, things are impermanent because of our wandering thoughts. Wandering thoughts are just careening around inside our mind at incredible speeds. So life here is impermanent because our mind keeps changing. Heaven and the Pure Land can sound almost the same. Heaven's up there, the Pure Land's out west. I can do this better in Indiana. It's to the west of us. The Pure Land is permanent. The lifetime in the Pure Land is as long as we need it to be in order for us to attain Buddhahood. We go to the Pure Land not just, or not even because life here is suffering and we've had enough and we want to end it. We go to the Pure Land because of the first vow of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to help them all. We recognize that here in samsara we are woefully unskilled at helping others. We try. But we just don't have enough of our wisdom functioning to be able to wisely help people. So we make mistakes. In the Pure Land, we will have all the time we need to learn how to help all beings. We will learn how to communicate with all beings. Right now, how can we help all beings when all we can see are humans and some animals? The beings in the other paths we cannot see, so we can't help them. In the Pure Land, we develop the ability to be able to communicate with all beings. So we are able to truly help them. So we do not go to the Pure Land to end our own personal suffering. That's just the initial starter that gets us recognizing that life here is suffering. We go to help all beings end their suffering. if all is self and all is one, how is it that we are to pass the limitations, evils of self? Sorry, I don't quite understand that. Can anybody? It's okay.
You might just have to let that one.
Sorry, I don't quite understand. Sometimes it's difficult enough to answer questions I do understand. Does reciting the Pure Land Sutras disrupt one's Buddha recitation practice? No, because what we're trying to achieve is constant mindfulness of Amitabha Buddha. So if we're reciting a Pure Land Sutra, we are thinking of Amitabha Buddha. So if we're solely focused when we're chanting that sutra, then we are still attaining constant mindfulness if we are sincerely chanting. So no, it does not deflect. The reason why we chant Amitabha is, in the past, when people could concentrate better, they would be able to chant a sutra from beginning to end without a single wandering thought. So the chanting was very effective. As time went on, masters would recommend that you just chant Namo Amitabha. Because to be really effective, you need to be focused from beginning to end. And people were having such difficulty focusing on the sutra from beginning to end that they were losing some of the benefits from it. So then it was just chant Namo Amitabha, which is homage to Amitabha Buddha. And then it's further been shortened to just Amitabha, or Amitabha Buddha. Because again, we need to be focused from beginning to end. Chanting the sutra can help to calm our mind. Especially if you're chanting it in Chinese when you don't speak Chinese. In Dallas, we used to chant the Infinite Life Sutra, which is a much longer sutra. And that could easily take over an hour to chant. And I was extraordinarily focused chanting that. Because if I lost where I was, I was done for. I finally figured out, okay, I can skip ahead like a page and look down the page and find something that I recognized, and then I would be waiting. And it was like trying to catch a train as it quickly roars through. Then I would jump back on again, and I was okay. So chanting in Chinese or chanting in a language you don't speak can actually be beneficial. Plus, we study the sutra. We look at the sutra in two ways. We look at it to study it, like we're doing during the lectures, to understand what it says. But we chant it to calm our mind. So chanting the sutra has the same benefit as chanting the Buddha name, in that it can calm our mind. What we're trying to do is calm the mind enough so our wisdom can surface. Because within our wisdom already is everything that we need. It's just that we can't access it because we have so many wandering thoughts and so many opinions and so many discriminations and so many aversions and attachments that we keep muddying the water. We can't see down to the wisdom. So chanting the sutra, chanting the Buddha's name, will both calm the mind. Chanting the Buddha's name is very convenient. Like we did before lunch today. You can chant just 10 times. We couldn't chant the Sutra that quickly. So chanting the Buddha's name can be very convenient because we can do it for just a minute or two and have it be very effective, where we can't do that with the Sutra. So both are good because both help us uncover our wisdom. Both can lead to constant mindfulness of Amitabha. Have you ever received a sign from Amitabha or other Bodhisattvas? If I had, I wouldn't say anything. So that's your answer. Sometimes it's not easy to know if you've had a sign, because a sign, it would be real easy if the doorbell rang and we answered it, and there was this glowing being who said, "Hi, I'm Amitabha, and I'm here for the Pure Land, and I'm here to help you." Then it would be really, other than giving us a heart attack, then it would be really helpful. But see, sometimes Bodhisattvas can help us without our even knowing it. So we may have been helped, but not even be aware of it happening. Because often a Buddha and a Bodhisattva will not ring that doorbell. They will come to us in a form just like any other being. So it might just be a kind person who comes to help us. It might be somebody who teaches us something without saying, "Hi, I'm Amitabha Buddha and I'm from the Pure Land and I'm here to help you." Just, they will take whatever form is necessary to help beings. In Singapore, one of the translators had asked me a question, and I said, "Why on earth are you asking me a question when you can ask a teacher?" And she said, "Because teacher is at such a high level, and you're not." Okay. But she was smiling when she said it, so I took it in a good way. What she was saying was, if a Buddha or Bodhisattva helped us, we would be so awestruck that we wouldn't know how to react. But if a kind person helps us, that may well be a teaching, but we don't know it for sure. So we don't know when we're being helped. But if we can regard all beings as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we will be a lot happier. And we'll be a lot more respectful to all. If rebirth doesn't exist, what would be the point of practice? Of reading something? If rebirth doesn't exist, and I'm practicing, and I'm concentrating on a Buddha name, and I'm using that to suppress my anger, my worries, my fears, then I'm just happier in this lifetime. If I'm living the teachings of morality, and if rebirth doesn't exist, then I'm just happier in this lifetime. Because I'm not worried about doing something wrong and having to figure out how to fix it afterwards, or be caught for having done so. So, not believing in rebirth, the person who is behaving morally still feels good because they are acting from their true nature. So they still benefit in how they feel now. So there is still benefit, even if karma and rebirth don't exist, still. The benefit we attain is great from living a moral life and from practicing. Because we're doing what is good instead of what is bad. And that is according with our true nature. Morality is similar to Christianity. Okay. Yeah. And Judaism and Sikhism and Jainism and a bunch of other really good spiritual teachings, because they are basic moral truths that you don't have to be a Buddhist to discover. It's wrong to kill. It's wrong to steal. It's wrong to lie. These are basic truths that anybody can discover, and many people have. So there are many shared beliefs. Rebirth similar to Hinduism. Yes, again, universal truths are not only known by Buddhists, but were not only discovered or seen, experienced by Buddha. Rebirth is a universal truth. So many people understand that it exists. I'm sorry, I can't read the word. Samadhi was taken from Hinduism too. That's not a reason. I don't know what the... Something was taken from Hinduism too. That's not a reason to dismiss it. I'm not sure what I was dismissing. Can you decipher that word?
I'll try.
It's the last question.
Yeah, samadhi. Samadhi was taken from Hinduism. That's what they're saying.
Concentration. Again, certain universal truths. Meditation. Very important. Certain universal truths that can be understood and utilized by many people. Question, how does this practice not lead to apathy towards this current life or towards people around us? That first vow. Sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to help them all. We understand that just as we suffer, others suffer as well. We are to not be attached, but that doesn't mean we are detached. Detached means don't care, apathy. Not being attached, we can still try our very best, but we're no longer tied up in feelings of disappointment or feeling proud based on what happened, based on the outcome. We no longer have expectations that I'm going to help, and if it doesn't turn out the way I want, then I'm disappointed. In our practice, we are to do everything we can to help others when the conditions are right and we know how to do so wisely. But we are to just let go of our expectations. To understand, I will try to do the best I can to help a person who is having difficulty. But I don't know what their karma is. I don't know what lies ahead in their lifetime. I may try my darndest to help them. But if they don't have the conditions for what I'm doing to change anything, it won't change it. It's not because of what I'm doing, it's because of their conditions. So understanding that people have conditions, and that when we try to help them, we are up against those conditions. That is why we need to let go of expectations, because if we go in expecting to help, and their conditions do not allow it, we can get really burnt out and give up trying to help. On the other hand, if we help somebody and it turns out well, then we don't get to feel, I did it. We didn't. It was their conditions. We were just kind of the factor that brought it about. But it would have happened anyhow. We just got to have the pleasure of being that nice condition. So we help. And actually we can help more if we understand about everybody having conditions. Because then we can help much more enthusiastically without getting frustrated, arrogant, disappointed. We can put all of our efforts into helping and get all of our emotions out of what the result is. So actually, with that understanding, we can help more. Because we're more calm, we're more settled, and we're less focused on less focused on me. We can focus more on the other person, not on what we are expecting or hoping to get out of this, or how we're expecting to help. Doesn't anybody have a simple question? What is this? I'm looking for a simple one. It's not there. Okay.
What is your name?
See, that would have been good. How is it that upon one's physical departure, death, from this third world dimension, he may still experience suffering in another realm of existence? Okay, when we die, we leave this physical, still experience suffering in another realm of existence. We're just born in a different path. Anybody want to confess up to this one? Mm-hmm. We're just born in a different path. And if we're born, as long as we're born in samsara, there is suffering. When we have form, there is suffering. Basically, the deterioration of form and all that goes with it. So there is suffering in every realm, every path within samsara. Death doesn't end it. It just leads us to the next life of suffering. Here's one touch in the Don't you have any larger pieces of paper? This one's really cute. Okay, sorry. My mind keeps wandering. Is that okay? No. Oh, good. Thank you, whoever you are. No. I'm sorry. I hate to be the one to tell you. No, it's not good because when our mind wanders, we have no control. It wanders places we don't want to go. It wanders places we swore we would never go again because it was too painful. and yet the mind wanders back. When our mind wanders, we end up being a slave to our wandering thoughts. We want to control our thoughts. We want to be the master. We don't want to be the slave. There's great freedom in being able to control our thoughts. To be able to decide just imagine what we wish to think of, and to only think of that. And to not have our mind just going all over willy-nilly, remembering painful things from the past, thinking of idiotic things in the present, thinking of things that are absolutely no relation to our life, but our mind just happens to wander there. Wandering thoughts take incredible energy. Energy that we could better devote to something else. Our brain takes a great deal of energy to maintain. And then you throw in the wandering thoughts that are in the consciousness, so then we have physical and non-physical energy being used to support those activities. They accomplish nothing. Wandering thoughts, definitely not okay. We need to find a way to direct our thoughts, to control our thoughts, to conserve our energy, to control what's going on in our mind, to control the seeds that are being planted in our consciousness. Because those seeds that are planted in our consciousness are going to mature someday, and we may not like what they mature into. They may bring us much suffering. So we want to be able to control our thoughts so they can be pure, good, compassionate, kind thoughts. Those are the seeds we want to be planting in our consciousness. Because the seeds in our consciousness keep leading us to future lives and to our future in this lifetime. We want that to be good. We don't want it to be suffering. How to go into meditation, advice and steps.
Seriously?
So, I'm serious, yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, all I'll say is Amitabha.
Come next weekend. And next weekend I'm leading an introduction to meditation retreat. I'll give you lots of advice in many steps. Oh, you want something now? Focus on your body. Feeling your body. Feeling the sensations of your body. That's a great place to start. And actually you can do that while chanting Amitabha. While chanting Amitabha, feel how the sound is vibrating in your body. Feel your body against the cushion. Or if you're walking, feel your feet against the ground. So, mindfulness of the body, maintaining clear, ongoing, present moment awareness of your physical sensations. That's often the easiest first step to really starting to develop a solid meditation practice.
Seems to be a lot of focus on being born in the Pure Land. How would one know to be making progress in this land? Assume means making progress in this lifetime now. How do we know we're making progress? It's the joy we get from our chanting. It's our increase in concentration. It's fewer wandering thoughts. It's gaining control of the mind. It's when those thoughts pop up as they do all the time. It's finding it easier and easier to pull the mind back to where we want it to be. It may not be an Amitabha, it may be on the work that we need to do. It may be talking to our children, listening to a spouse. It's to be able to direct our thoughts where we want instead of being distracted. That's a sign that we're practicing well. We may find our bad habits starting to recede a little bit. We may not become as angry as we used to. Have better control of our temper. Not get as upset. Stay more balanced. So many signs that we're making progress in our practice. And actually, we may not even notice it at first. I wish you could turn the camera off. When I was in Dallas, you can delete, right? Okay, editing. When I was in Dallas, before I became a nun, I would take my mother and a friend of hers shopping, grocery shopping, and we'd run errands. And we'd go out like once a week. And I hadn't been going to the Dallas Buddhist Association that long, but Mom and Ruth were in the back seat, and Mom was saying, "Oh, she's so much more patient these days." And Mom kept going on and on about how I wasn't getting angry like I used to, and I was more patient, and she was going on, and I finally, when I'm driving, turned around and said, "Mom, I couldn't have been that bad." But apparently I was. And the good news is, I wasn't anymore, but my mother noticed it before I did. So sometimes we may be improving, but not even notice it. But somebody who knows us really well will notice. And if we're lucky, they'll point it out so we can go, "Oh, I hadn't even realized." Because we were sort of inside the change, that somebody was observing it, who knew us very well, was observing how we were reacting. So sometimes we may not even notice right away that we're changing or that we're benefiting from our practice. But if we are sincerely trying to be better people, if we are sincerely trying to follow the 10 virtuous karmas, we will be making progress. Could you clarify the concept of non-self in the Pure Land? How can there be individual preferences if everyone's awakened? Wouldn't the concept of self dissolve them? The individual preferences, and most of what is in the Amitabha Sutra is describing the lowest of the 4 lands, the land where ordinary beings and sages dwell together. And that's the land where most of us, or most people, are born into. So that's the land that Sakyamuni was describing. And we have those preferences and those thoughts because we didn't block those wandering thoughts when we should have. So all those wandering thoughts were planting seeds, and now they periodically pop up. So we'll think of our favorite food. We'll think of we'd like our house to be small and in the air. And we'd like certain kind of clothing. because we still have these preferences. We have lived since time without beginning. That's a lot of habits to have. So we have those habits and preferences. It's hard to just eradicate them the moment we're born into Pure Land. It takes time. It's the advantage of being in the Pure Land. The lifetime is as long as we need it. The problem in samsara, there's many problems. One of the problems in samsara is that we encounter a lifetime where we learn Buddhism, and we encounter a good teacher, and we practice, and we make progress. And then we die and we are reborn again. And odds are we're not going to be reborn as a human again. So it may be many, 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 many lifetimes until we're reborn as a human again. We have forgotten what we learned in that other lifetime. So the reason it takes so long is that we progress in one lifetime and we fall back in others. In the Pure Land, we reach the level or the stage of non-retrogression. It's no longer one step forward and 300 backwards. We constantly progress. So we've got this upward slope. We may progress very quickly. We may progress really, really, really slowly. But we're still progressing. So we have as long as we need to attain Buddhahood. In that time, gradually, we will stop having preferences. Our wandering thoughts, our discriminations, our preferences, our desires, all of that, our bad habits, will gradually just fade away. When we're in the Pure Land, when we get to the Pure Land, we're not completely awakened. We're closer. But we're not, the enjoyments we enjoy are because of Amitabha's support. We haven't earned them yet on our own. So we haven't earned awakening on our own. We need to practice, and that's what we do in the Pure Land. As we practice, we awaken gradually. Gradually, ignorance, parts of ignorance start dropping away. And this is why we go there to practice. But when we go there, we go to the land of where ordinary beings and sages dwell together. We're not going to the land of eternally quiescent light, which is where Buddhists dwell. We are going to the land where we are not yet fully awakened. It's why we go to the Pure Land, because even though there is non-retrogression and we can go more quickly, it still takes time to perfectly awaken. I have an aversion towards a practice that mandates blind faith. Me too. Pure Land practice seems to require that. Can you provide different perspectives? I would be delighted to. As the Buddha said, no, don't take something on blind belief. Experience, study, practice. The same thing with Pure Land. We study the teachings, we study the sutras to actually strengthen our belief. The amount of belief we have in the Pure Land now is based on our roots. Roots are what develop over lifetime. Our practice roots develop over many lifetimes. As we practice a method, that root keeps getting stronger. It's like when we plant a little sapling. The root is very shallow. Gradually, as the tree grows into a tree, the roots grow stronger and deeper, bigger. That's what happens with our practice as well. So when we go to, everybody here has encountered Pure Land to some degree in a past lifetime. It may be very light, it may be very strong, we don't know. We study the sutras because we have that root. Maybe a little root, maybe a big strong root, we don't know. But we study and we practice and we see if there are results from our practice. Like my mother saying I was more patient. That was because of my practice. I was practicing the teachings. That encouraged or that strengthened my belief. As we practice something and gradually begin to prove what is taught, we have more confidence in what is being taught in the practice. So we don't go in with blind belief. We go in with an open mind to investigate, to see if this is the path for us. The Buddha taught 84,000 Dharma doors. We just need to find the one that is appropriate for us. But when we find one that we feel drawn to, the practice feels comfortable, everything just seems to fit, then we study. It's the purpose of the talks that I'm giving, is to help try to answer questions. Apparently it's increasing questions. Hopefully at some point it will also answer some questions. It's so we learn. And we keep studying to investigate what is being said, to experiment with it. When I chant the Buddha name, do I feel more calm? Learn the teachings, practice them with an open mind. Blind belief is not good. We need belief based on conviction and confidence, based on our experience, just as the Buddha taught. There are some things that we cannot, at this point, experience or prove. The existence of the Western Pyramid. But if a teacher who has taught about something teaches us 99 points that we can, 95 points, that we can verify, work with, and prove, then I'm comfortable taking on belief the other 5 points. Because it's not blind belief. It's confidence that somebody who has told me this, and I've proved it's all correct, and it's solid for me. Then, when there are some things that I cannot prove, I will just take those on faith. But it's faith based on experience, practice, and learning. It's not blind. So I also have Also not crazy about blind belief. Could I be ordained even if my partner doesn't agree? Not married, no kids. Amitabha. First, being ordained or being accepted as a monastic student depends on a master. We have to ask the teacher that we learn from if that particular teacher would accept us as a student. There are certain guidelines. The family has to, it's beneficial if the family approves. Some masters will accept students who have been divorced, others will not. Depends, really, it's very individual up to, in my experience, up to the teacher, the master, as to who he will accept as a monastic student. So it depends on the master. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just go for it. Try. If you're looking for excuses to not get ordained, you will find an infinite list of excuses. But if you're really set on ordination, nothing will stand in your way.
It's all up to your conditions. And you don't know until you ask. And perhaps that teacher does not say yes, but that teacher may refer you to somebody else. You don't know unless you ask.
Would that be cruel if someone just left their partner in suffering
It'd be cruel.
If someone just left their partner who's still attached?
That's getting close to accepting somebody who is married. Not legally, perhaps, but still there's a very close relationship. That's a matter that only the individual could answer, and only the individual teacher, the only master could answer. Ideally, I'm thinking of somebody who did become a monastic, but the person had been divorced for many years, and the children were grown. But no kids in this one. That's really a matter of conscience. Something that you would need to I would say chant on, to try to calm the wandering thoughts, to discern the answer. Often in questions like this, we already know the answer. We're hoping somebody will make it even more clear for us. But when people come to me and want to know what to do, and I don't know, I have enough trouble figuring out myself sometimes what to do. And there's no way I can tell somebody else what to do. But I can listen long enough, and they can keep talking and talking and talking and thinking through it, and often discover that they already know the answer. They were just hoping somebody else would confirm it and make it really nice. But most of the time, the answer is already within us. We just haven't calmed our mind enough to discern it. Or maybe calmed our mind enough to accept it. So, calming the mind is very important. When I first listened to my teacher, somebody would ask him a question, a very difficult situation, and he would say, chant the sutra. And I thought, oh, that's no help. And then, over time, I would hear my senior brothers say, chant the sutra. And son of a gun, right now I say, chant Amitabha. Because it was good advice. It just took me a while to figure it out. We had, the answer is within us. The problem is we can't discern it. So we need to calm the mind enough to allow that answer to surface. And these are things that we just kind of have to figure out ourselves. But the answer is there. Why no sex for monks and nuns? I said I wanted a simple one. Sexual desire is just about the toughest desire there is. And it pulls us back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We're trying to purify our minds, gain control of our thoughts. If we are caught up in sexual desires, that's not going to happen. Sexual desire is about the strongest desire that there is, the toughest to break. So it's most important, vitally important, that monastics do not engage, do not think, avoid, control thoughts of sexual desire. We're trying to purify our minds, control our minds, not give in to desires. Why I didn't hear this rule this morning. Why no sex in retreat centers? Other than would, I like this person, other than it would be an administrative pain. We're trying to control our desires. Trying to purify our mind. We're not doing that if we're going around trying to figure out how to get the other person into bed. Not going to happen. We've got to control our thoughts, control our desires. And we show respect for the monastics who live there. Where I am in Australia, we have married couples visit, and the wife lives in one dormitory and the husband lives in another dormitory. They're married, perfectly legal. But they're married. In the center, there is no sexual conduct. Both because they come there to try to practice. They want to focus on their practice. They don't want to give in to their desires. And they don't want to give rise or encourage other people having desires. We go to a center to give up, and when we go to a center, we give up. At that front door, we're supposed to leave our attachments. Our attachments to doing things the way we like to do them. Our personal preferences, that's all supposed to be left at the front door. Our greed is supposed to be left at the front door. Our anger is supposed to be left at the front door. Our desires, with sexual desire being the strongest, left at the front door. We're here to practice purifying our mind. And we can't do that if we're giving in to desires. I keep looking for the bottom of the box. How did you get so many things in there? After the Friday chanting, my body wanted to move on circular motion or back and forth. What does this mean? Is the body aligning itself? I don't know. I do on Friday chanting. We didn't do any walking on Friday, did we? Was
No.
Friday yesterday? Thank you. Okay. See, no wandering thoughts. No memory either, apparently. I'm not quite sure why the person would feel like moving, other than, oh, okay, oh dear. Yeah, okay. Sometimes when I'm chanting, I move back and forth very gently. I figure that's my Jewish DNA, so it's okay. It could simply be that we're so, and this is, I really don't know here, it could simply be that we're just so into the chanting that, as you were mentioning, that we feel the chanting as we're walking, as we're stepping, that we're feeling the chanting even in our body. And the way to express that is that the body wants to move. So it might be something like that. Does the Pure Land have the three marks of existence? Anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Okay, dukkha is suffering. Anatta is emptiness.
Anatta is not self, and anicca is impermanence.
Thank you. It does not have impermanence. The Pure Land has permanence. No suffering. The land of ultimate bliss. There's none of the 8 sufferings that I went through this morning. No birth, old age, sickness, death. No suffering due to having formed feelings, thoughts. So, no suffering. Everything is permanent. Permanent, and not is.
Not self. Impersonal.
Impersonal. Everything in the Pure Land is one. Everything, everywhere, is one. We just don't recognize that right now. So in the Pure Land, because we are closer to awakening, we're closer to realizing that we are the oneness of all beings. Do Buddhist monks and nuns have partnerships with other people? Whether romantic, sexual, or another kind? No. That's easy. No partnerships, no. Neither romantic, sexual. We have friends. My brothers, okay, brothers. We call both monks and nuns brothers. So we always confuse people when I say my brother is she. Confusing people. We have friendships. Can be very deep friendships. And support for each other. But no relationships. Again, relationships are attachments. We're trying to sever attachments, let go of attachments. I think this is for both of us again. Have either of you developed psychic powers through meditation? Not me.
So the Buddha said there's two kinds of miracles. The miracle of psychic powers and the miracle of teaching Dharma. And that of the two, the miracle of teaching Dharma is far more valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's all I have to say on the matter.
Okay, that's good for me. Can psychic power be used in the service of Buddhism and others? Teaching the Dharma. I may soon face an eviction battle over my apartment. It will probably take a year, and I will stick the landlord with quite a number of months of unpaid rent. I have to survive and nowhere else to go. So is this Buddhist? Does doing what you have to do to survive trump any of the Buddhist rules? I can never be homeless, period. Stealing is taking something without permission. It's one of the 10 virtuous karmas, one of the 5 precepts. We do the best we can in any situation. We don't know the karmic relationship, whether there is a debt owed or a debt to be paid. I would say if there was absolutely no way to pay the rent now, find a way to pay it in the future. Okay. Anything to add?
It's unquestionably unwholesome karma.
Yeah.
To be living without paying rent and trying to, it's definitely unwholesome karma.
There will be consequences.
Yeah.
So the question is, can the consequences... See, recently I just wrote, if you don't want the consequences, don't do the karmas. There will be consequences. And if there is suffering to be faced, delaying it doesn't make it go away. It may make it worse, because the consequences may come back at a time where we don't understand Buddhism. May come back at a time where we have others dependent upon us, so others suffer as well. There are consequences for everything we do. I know somebody who's facing some very difficult consequences. But because he understands Buddhism, he's having I won't say easier, not even easier time. He's having less difficulty facing the situation because he understands why it's happening. He understands karma. So because of that, he can accept a very extraordinarily painful situation better than if he did not understand. If he didn't understand, he'd be fighting it. But he's trying very hard not to fight it. Consequences for everything we do. We need to think about what the consequences are and what it would be like facing them in the future without understanding karma, previous lifetimes, rebirth. In Dharma today, I heard that suffering, one kind of suffering, is caused by having to work with people who speak ill of you behind your back constantly. Okay, well, that added a little bit to it, but yeah. Yes, this is what I'm experiencing now. I feel very sorry because I was thinking of a personal situation when I wrote that, so I know how you feel. How can Buddhism help me get over this everyday suffering at work, where I am in a team full of gossips and envious people? Samsara. The lives we have today were created by us in the past. If we're having to work with people who are gossiping, envious, talking behind our back constantly, we did those things in the past. That's why we're having to endure them now. So how do we work with it? One of the 6 paramitas is the practice of patience. I know a gentleman who is incredibly patient. I'm trying to think what I can say on camera. Is in a relationship with a person who's very strong and can be critical. And I have seen this person be berated and scolded in public and not say a word. And this person is not a weak person. This is a very competent person in their own right. Very competent at work. She's a very strong personality. But again, this person knows Buddhism. And this person has learned to work on patience and is perhaps the most patient person I know. Because the person he's being patient with, I'm not being so patient with. So I have gotten a minor degree of what he has undergone. And yet he's coming ever close to perfecting his patience. So he has turned it around. There's something called turning afflictions into bodhi. And that's turning difficult things, turning our afflictions, turning it around so completely that we work with it. So he has taken a very stressful situation, turned it around. So he is viewing it now as an opportunity to work on his patience. He does an incredible job of it. So it's how we view these situations that we're in. Do we become overwhelmed by them? Or do we figure out how to turn them around into a practice opportunity? It all depends on what we tell ourselves about a situation. I can tell myself that this person is driving me crazy, that these people gossip all the time. They're not nice people to be around, and yet I have to work with them all day. Or I can say, I had to do something to find myself in this situation. Now what do? We can learn how to advertisement, chant Amitabha, to calm the thoughts of frustration that arise, to turn off the gossip. We can keep practicing to be a virtuous person, continue practicing our Buddhist practice, and in time that will improve the situation. By helping us to live with it better, more sanely, more calmly, but also it can improve the situation by changing our conditions. What we want to do is change our conditions. We want to improve our conditions. Conditions we can work with. The seeds that we've already planted are in our alaya consciousness. They're there. Deed's been done, karma's there. It's what ones arise that create the life we're living now. We can encourage those good seeds, or we can encourage the bad seeds. It all depends on the conditions that we create. By living morally, by caring for others, by not giving in to gossip, by letting bad thoughts just go, we are creating good conditions. With enough good conditions, the good seeds will start to arise. So we can change what happens in our future. And for now, we just keep working with our practice. Coming to a retreat center and meditating is really an incredibly wonderful opportunity. Meditating here is so much easier than it is in everyday life. Your phones are turned off. That alone is worth a great deal. No computers, no devices. You've left concerns outside. You're in an environment where other people, everybody here is sharing the same goals, wanting to benefit from the retreat. You heard this morning to be considerate of others, to be quiet, to not talk a great deal, just say what needs to be said, to do the work that needs to be done. Then you come back here and you can read, you can meditate, you can listen to a talk. This is an ideal environment. In the world, it's tough to practice. But that's where we make our progress. We take all that we learn here and we take it back to our everyday lives with us, and then we try to plug it into our everyday lives. So we take that sense of calmness and that sense of respect for others. And try to apply that in our regular life. That's one of the ways we benefit from coming here. But it's in everyday life that we really struggle to practice. But because we're struggling to practice, we can make major changes. We don't learn to be patient with others when we're surrounded by caring, gentle people. Nothing to be patient with. We learn patience when we're faced with people that just give us a hard time. So it's how we view it. This is an opportunity to practice patience. And the results can be quite extraordinary. Do you take Pure Land, land of ultimate bliss, literally? Yes. Is it like, oh, this is it gets even better. Is it like Christian heaven? No. I am very good at, okay, sorry, seriously, those were the answers. I know I'm being kind of humorous, but yeah, I do take it literally. Sakyamuni Buddha spoke of the Pure Land in approximately 200 sutras. So the Pure Land teachings are just all over what he taught. It does exist. As a master, a student one time asked the master, is the Pure Land real? And the master said, is this land real? And the student said yes. And the master said the Pure Land is even more real. So yes, I do take it literally. As a physical place and as a state of mind. I am very good at crashing VIP something. I'm sorry. Something here. So why can't I crash the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss? Who is going to stop me? I'm afraid your lotus just took a big hit on that. Well, first you got a problem of getting there. It's several billion Buddha lands to the west. And a Buddha land is a very big area. The way we get there is Amitabha comes with our lotus. If we haven't grown, nurtured, done everything we can to make our lotus as big and as beautiful and as healthy as it is, Amitabha can't bring it to us to go to the Pure Land. So there's no way to get there from here. And the way we get there is by having that vow, sentient beings are innumerable, I vow to help them all. And the vow to be born in the Western Pure Land. No gate crashing. What are the benefits of daily recitation of Buddha name? Calm mind, control of one's thoughts, future birth in the Pure Land, future ability to help many beings, future ability to repay the kindness of all those who have done so much for me in all my past lives. Patience. No longer being as angry as I used to be. Being happier. Living more simply and being content with less. The list goes on. What are the benefits from reciting daily the Amitabha and or Infinite Life Sutra? Very similar. It helps to calm our mind. And brings us the benefits that we get, all of the same benefits from chanting the Buddha name. It's just it's largely a question of time. I assume the person is asking, well, okay, we have the Amitabha Sutra in English. The Infinite Life Sutra translations are trickier. My teacher uses one compilation version, and we don't have a translation of it. I know there's a Sanskrit version of the Infinite Life Sutra, but it's a very old translation, so the wording is very dated. So, very similar. It depends on the time. If our time is shorter, we might just chant Amitabha. More time, we have a book, Going Home to the Pure Land, that has a very simple procedure for chanting the sutra and some other things in it that can be done. Depends on time. And time depends on choice. Does Amitabha have real existence in our universe, or is he only mind created? He has real existence. The Pure Land, the Buddha spoke the Sutra and the Infinite Life Sutra to describe the Pure Land. It's a real land with a real Buddha. So he does exist, or only mind created. Well, it's kind of both. He has existence, and he is mind created. Everything is created by the mind. But he is real, and he is in his land, and he is teaching now. If one recites many times a day but doesn't reach enlightenment, will he still be picked up by Amitabha? We don't have to attain enlightenment for Amitabha to come. We need to attain constant mindfulness. And I'll be going more into constant mindfulness, I believe, tomorrow. Constant mindfulness is when we are either saying the Buddha name, or we are always aware of him. So we don't reach enlightenment until we get to the Pure Land. We just want to reach the level where we make that, it's called the Ganyin, connection with Amitabha. He's always thinking of us. Our thoughts are kind of all over the place. We need to calm them so we can make that connection. And we do that through our Buddha name chanting. We don't need to attain enlightenment first. We do that once we get to the Pure Land. What if one doesn't vision or the Pure Land or recite single-mindedly? Will he still be born in the Pure Land? We need constant mindfulness. All we can do, so that part of the problem is we don't know what our roots are. We don't know what we practiced in the past. We don't know what our conditions are. We don't know the situation we will encounter as we're dying. There's a lot of things we don't know. What we do know is if we keep chanting, it's not a matter of if we will be born in the Pure Land, it's when. So if we keep chanting, we will be born in the Pure Land. Ideally, this lifetime. Not this lifetime, a future lifetime. So we just keep plodding ahead. We just keep chanting. We just keep doing the work. Knowing we're making progress, we're getting closer. We just don't know how close. But we just keep working our way closer. We really do need to have that constant mindfulness. Should a Pure Land practitioner recite the Shurangama mantra? Choose one sutra, one practice, and focus on it. A problem with chanting different things, like the Shurangama mantra, is we don't want to be on our deathbed and know that our end is very close and be wondering, what should I chant? We want it to be automatic. No question in our mind. We want it to be Amitabha. The more we recite the Buddha name, the stronger, the more natural it becomes for us to chant it. We want it to be as natural as breathing. To have it that natural, we need to do it a whole lot of times. So the time that we spend doing other things is time away from chanting the Buddha name. Which Pure Land practice can help one uphold celibacy and remove lust? Amitabha. That's why it's so powerful, because it can be used for all different things. It can be used to quell thoughts of lust. It can be used to quell angry thoughts. It can be used to get us into the Pure Land. It's multi-purpose. The more we practice, the stronger we get at it. How can one devote to Mahasthamaprapta? Probably if you asked Mahasthamaprapta is the Bodhisattva who always accompanies Amitabha Buddha. Two Bodhisattvas. One is Kuan Yin or Avalokiteshvara, the other is Mahasthamaprapta. After Amitabha Buddha passes into final nirvana, Avalokiteshvara will be the next Buddha in the Pure Land. After Avalokiteshvara passes into final nirvana, Mahasthamaprapta will be the next Buddha in the Pure Land. So there's this wonderful continuity of teachings. There's no break between Buddhas like we have here. Mahasthamaprapta spoke of reciting the Buddha name. And Mahasthamaprapta would want us to be born in the Pure Land as soon as possible. So we don't want to strengthen our affinity with Mahasthamaprapta. We want to strengthen it with